Hey guys, Rollout here, and welcome back to Builder's Block. We're doing a weekly format now, so that's exciting. I think it's going to feel a little bit different as we settle into things. I need these episodes to be more casual if I'm going to realistically keep up the pace. Usually I'm willing to do literal hundreds of takes to say something right, but these episodes are hopefully going to be a little bit more chill. We're just going to roll with the punches. It also might feel a little bit different because we're kicking things off right in the middle of something. As a warm-up, I started daily creations at the beginning of the year on January 1st. It is February now, so at this point, I've been keeping this up for a whole month. Keep that in mind. If you want to support the show and are interested in the rest of those creations I built over the course of January, go check out the Patreon page. I post daily content over there, so it's worth a look. And if you can't support financially, I completely understand. Just don't forget to click the like button and share this video with your friends. Every little bit counts. Business, business, business. Numbers. With that out of the way, let's finally get this thing started. So I'm going to record these episodes before I build my daily creation, and I'm also going to record them a day before I upload them. So the creations you will see are from a week prior to a couple days ago, if that makes any sense. Anyway, I built this at the tail end of January, and we're going to go through the creations I built up until the beginning of February. Here is a tiny little fighter jet. I wanted to use a lot of triangular elements that I haven't used a whole lot of in the past, up until now at least. You can see the pyramid piece used for the nose cone, of course the triangle tiles for the wings, and then we'll call them cut off corner tiles for the tail fins here. There's some interesting inversions going on in the construction of this, despite it being very small and simple. Here it is deconstructed, so you can see what I'm talking about. I also wanted to use the 1x1x2 tall brick element with two studs on the side. You can see I've used that for the cockpit. It seems quite useful, but this is actually the only time I've utilized it, I think, up until now. Now, at this point, I hadn't built very many colorful creations over the last few days. They've been mostly monochrome, lots of grays, lots of whites and blacks, and so I wanted to build something very colorful, and the first thing that came to mind was a rainbow sword. So this is what I like to call the Roy G. Blade. You can see that the hilt is still mostly black, so I couldn't quite escape those monochrome colors, but there is kind of this interesting relationship between one half of the blade and the other. The hilt is kind of organic. It's very dark. It's almost like a creature of its own. It has an eye, it has these spikes, it has a tail, and then the blade, by contrast, is all about light. You have the rainbow spectrum, the red, the orange, the yellow, the green, the blue, the indigo, and the violet. It is a very large thing. Here it is, held by a minifigure, if you want to see that. It's kind of ridiculous, but it's the kind of ridiculous that I love. There's something about building massively oversized accessories for minifigures that I just get a kick out of, and I'm not sure why. Now, on the next day, I wanted to build something a little bit more sculptural. I wanted to build something with a face. I didn't want to build the whole body, though, so I just built a dragon head. There's some cool techniques going on here, but also some questionable ones, and I'm not entirely satisfied with the final look of it. I mean, I think it's pretty cool. One thing I really wanted to do was integrate the hinges of the jaw so that the mouth could open and close as seamlessly as possible. I wanted it to have kind of an organic look to it, and I think I succeeded with that, but there are some elements that are less clean than I'd like them to be. For example, you can see white kind of showing through under the eye from the tooth element below it. You can see there's lots of tenuous half connections involved, and while that makes some really cool geometry, it does make the overall construction pretty weak. Here it is with the mouth open. This is really what I wanted to do, is have this mouth open in a very organic way, and I think it looks pretty cool. You can also see the little like feather element I used as the tongue. I especially like that a lot. Yeah, while the half connections allow for these cool angles and cool shapes in the head, overall it's not built exceptionally solidly. We'll say that. Now, for a while, a passion of mine has been building accessories from the old Bionicle Flash games for my Bionicle figures, and something that I had not seen anybody build perfectly accurately to the old point-and-click Motunui online game was the lava board. And so I wanted to try building one that was as faithful as possible. I used a couple of games from the early 2000s era, 01 and 02, as reference for this, and I built myself the lava board here. They call it a lava board. It's really more of a raft. It's got kind of an interesting shape to it. It's very wide, but it also has a lot more moving parts than I expected it to. These little back bits that stick out are free moving. They aren't really secured by anything, so they kind of move around. You can squeeze the pieces together so that by friction, they sort of stay put. But I guess they move because they're supposed to be like rudders. The same thing for the fins on the side. Those are, again, just attached with a pinhole around an axle. So they do move freely, but you can squeeze those bushings together so that it stays relatively solid. Now, the construction of this does use these relatively rare black pin axles with the friction nubs on them. The community likes to call these black gold. You can build it without them, but I believe this construction to be a little less accurate. Here is my Takua riding on the lava board just for scale. You can see he's got a little backpack. You can see the glimpse of that behind him. I have built a lot of Motunui online game accessories, and maybe someday I will make a video showcasing all of them, if that's something you would like to see. On the next day, I received another Bricklink order, and I started things off slowly. It came to my attention, rather, that these pyramid elements came in trans-orange, obviously, through the Nexo Knights sets, and it's kind of a no-brainer that I could use them to build a Lightstone, also from the Motunui online game. This is like the exact shape of that item, and so, of course, I wanted to put one together and add that to my collection. But the bulk of the order I received was in order to finish a couple of projects I'd been building throughout January. A couple of Transformers. So, here are the two of them. On the left, we have an Aardvark Transformer called a Trowel, and on the right, we have an armored car Transformer called Breakthrough. Brown and sand green are some colors that I've wanted to use for a long time. Some colors I haven't used a whole lot of. You can see that both of them have a lot of dark gray in their color schemes, and that's because of the limited palette we have for Mixel toe ball joints, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon, so it's always going to be something I'll have to work around, but I think it works relatively well here. I really like Trowel. He's super cute. I actually built him entirely for a Bricks Cascade joke. Bricks Cascade is at the end of February, and so I'll be bringing these to that. Hopefully, I can get these showcases done before that. Although, on second thought, I might wait until after Bricks Cascade to showcase Trowel, just so that it can maybe be more of a surprise to some people. Anyway, I also really like Breakthrough. His transformation is super fun. I love the way he looks in robot mode. As usual, I'm not going to show you the robot mode in my Builder's Block episodes. You'll have to wait until the showcase for that. All right. So before I get to the next creation, I have to mention one of my favorite book series, and I'm sure a lot of you know what this is. It's not obscure or anything like that, but I absolutely love the Kingkiller Chronicle. And I have been reading through The Wise Man's Fear recently, the second book in the series, and so I built a board game. This is a strategy game featured in that fantasy novel series. It's called Tack. It's kind of like an amalgamation of checkers and chess and Go. It's quite simple, but also quite complex in other ways, like all good games should be. And I realized it was very easy for me to build a miniature tack board that is completely playable. This is a 6x6 board with 30 black pieces and 30 white pieces. It's super, super fiddly to play on because it is so small, but it is completely functional, and so at least there is that success. I mean, once you get to this point mid in the game, the play state you see right now is actually quite early, believe it or not. But once you get stacks going high enough, the tiles can stack quite high in this game, and once you get them high enough, you will very easily knock the whole thing over and create a mess and ruin the game completely. But you can see that there are just simple squares for the pieces, for the main stones, and then you have the two capital stones as well, which are, of course, important for the game. And then you have, again, the 6x6 court-style board here, which I probably could have built a little more efficiently. I just sort of used what I had, which means that instead of the sides being kind of longer, more structurally sound tiles, they are just 1x2s, and the whole thing is a little bit finicky, but I think it looks really nice. It's really, really pleasing to the eye, and again, like I said, it is a functional game, despite it being very finicky. The fact that the pieces are so small means they're also very light, and it makes it very easy to topple everything over. You kind of need like a toothpick and tweezers to make it work properly, but again, it does work. On the final day of the week, I built this Emoji Face. Now, this might be familiar to you. You've probably seen these on the internet before. This was built by a guy, I believe, named Ian Heath. I will put a link to his Flickr gallery of emoji faces in the description. I am not above emulation. I think sometimes just kind of backwards engineering somebody else's model is a good way to learn a lot of cool techniques. And like I said, I've been looking at these emoji faces for a while. My favorite reaction online to respond with is a thinky face by far. That's just a fact. I'm not proud of it, but it is what it is. And so I wanted to build a little thinky face for my desk. Now, this is not built exactly like the original. I had to use some substitutions for a couple of things. So it is a little bit my own interpretation, but it essentially looks the same as the original by most accounts. Here it is from the side. The illusion is slightly lost from the side, to be honest, but I still think the construction of the back here is quite brilliant. Some really well executed snot techniques here. I think that the back of mine might look a little bit cleaner than the back of his creations generally look. That's mostly up to personal preference. I don't think one way is better or worse than the other. But I actually did not have a whole lot of corner tiles, which are used on the sides and the tops of the originals. So I had to just use 2x4s to connect everything back here, and it led to a little bit more of a solid geometrical shape. But it means that the back elements are less hidden from more angles, so there is some give and take. Anyway, those are all of my creations from the past week. And that wraps up the first episode of Builder's Block in actual years. If you're new to the show, let me know what you think, and if you're a fan of those original pilot episodes from way back in 2017, let me know how you felt about this return. As cliche as it sounds, I want this show to be yours as much as it is mine. If you want to share your own creations with me, you can always send them to contactrollout@gmail.com. If I am particularly impressed, there's a chance they could be featured on the show at some point. I also want to thank my handful of early Patreon subscribers, you brave souls, especially my single leader class patron thus far, Cruciferous Belligerence. I hope I can get used to saying that name. Until next week, that feels funny to say, but we're doing it. This has been Rollout, signing off.